Johnny Carson had been hosting The Tonight Show for 30 years. 30 years of monologues that became morning conversation. 30 years of making America laugh before bed. He'd interviewed presidents and poets, astronauts and actors. He'd seen it all. The surprises. The breakdowns. The moments that became legend. He'd learned to expect the unexpected. To roll with anything. To never let the audience see him caught off guard. But nothing prepared him for what happened that night in 1978. It was a Thursday taping. Mid-November. The kind of night where the studio felt particularly warm because the heating system was overcompensating for the cold outside. The audience had filed in with their usual energy. Excited. Ready to laugh. The Tonight Show was the biggest ticket in television. People waited months for these seats. Johnny did his monologue. Political jokes about Carter. A bit about Thanksgiving coming up. Standard material. Landing well. The audience was responsive. Everything felt normal. Routine. Another Thursday night in 30 years of Thursday nights. Then, about 8 minutes into the show, something unusual happened. A production assistant approached the stage during a commercial break. Whispered something to one of the stage managers. The stage manager's face changed. He looked confused. Then concerned. He walked quickly to where Johnny was sitting, reviewing his notes for the next segment. "Johnny," the stage manager said quietly, "we have a situation." Johnny looked up. "What kind of situation?" "There's a young girl in the front row. Says she needs to talk to you. Says it's about her father." Johnny frowned. "We don't do audience participation segments on Thursdays." "Tell her, she says her father was Elvis Presley." The pen in Johnny's hand stopped moving. He looked at the stage manager. "What?" "Lisa Marie Presley is in the front row. She has something with her. Something she says you need to see." Johnny's mind raced. Elvis had died the year before. August 1977. The whole world had mourned. Johnny had done a tribute on the show. Talked about Elvis's impact on music, on culture, on America. It had been one of the few times Johnny had gotten emotional on air. Elvis represented something. A generation. A dream. And now he was gone. "Where is she?" Johnny asked. The stage manager pointed. "Front row. Center." A girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old, sat very still. She was wearing a simple dress. Nothing flashy. And on her lap, carefully held, was a guitar. Acoustic. Worn. The kind of guitar that had clearly been played for years. The commercial break ended. The red light came back on. Johnny was supposed to introduce his first guest. A comedian. Scheduled. Planned. Safe. Instead, Johnny did something he almost never did. He deviated. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice different than it had been during the monologue, "we're going to change things up a bit tonight." The audience murmured. Confused. This wasn't how the show worked. Johnny stood up from behind his desk. Walked to the front of the stage. Looked down at Lisa Marie Presley. "Young lady," he said gently, "I understand you wanted to talk to me?" Lisa Marie stood. She was small. Young. But she held that guitar like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Mr. Carson," she said, her voice clear despite the nerves that had to be running through her. "This was my daddy's guitar." Carson stopped mid-monologue. The entire studio froze. The audience went completely silent. You could hear the ambient hum of the cameras. The distant shuffle of a crew member adjusting position. Nothing else. Johnny crouched down slightly. Getting closer to her level. "Your daddy," he said softly, "was one of the greatest performers who ever lived." Lisa Marie nodded. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. "He played this guitar at home. Not on stage. Just at home. For me. For my mama. For us." Johnny swallowed hard. On national television. In front of millions. He swallowed hard because he understood immediately what this was. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This wasn't planned. This was a little girl who'd lost her father and needed to share him with someone who might understand. "Would you like to come up here?" Johnny asked. Lisa Marie nodded. The stage manager rushed to help her up the steps. She was small enough that the guitar looked enormous in her hands. Johnny took her hand gently, led her to the guest chair. She sat down. The guitar rested against her lap. Johnny went back behind his desk. But he didn't sit. Just stood there, looking at this child. At this guitar. At this moment that nobody had planned but everyone would remember. "Tell me about this guitar," Johnny said. Lisa Marie's voice was quiet but steady. "He bought it in 1956. Before he was famous. Before everything changed. He said it was the first nice thing he ever owned. And he kept it his whole life. Even when he had 100 other guitars. Even when he could buy anything. He kept this one." She ran her small hand over the wood. You could see the wear. The scratches. The places where fingers had pressed strings for 20 years. The patina of use and love. "After he died," Lisa Marie continued, her voice cracking slightly, "Mama said I could have it. She said Daddy would want me to have it. But I don't know how to play. I don't know any songs. And I feel like I'm not taking care of it right. Like Daddy would be disappointed." And there it was. The weight this child was carrying. The impossible burden of being Elvis Presley's daughter. Of holding his legacy. Of trying to honor a father who was also a legend. Johnny sat down. Slowly. He folded his hands on his desk. When he spoke, his voice was gentler than most people had ever heard it. "Lisa Marie," he said, "your daddy wouldn't be disappointed. Do you know why?" She shook her head. "Because you're here. You're holding his guitar. You're keeping him alive. Not by playing the way he did. But by remembering. By caring. That's what matters." Backstage, he made a choice no producer would have ever allowed. Johnny reached under his desk. Pulled out a phone. An actual rotary phone that was part of the set decoration but also functional. He picked it up. Dialed. On live television. Nobody knew what he was doing. The producers in the control room were panicking. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't planned. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then a voice answered. Muffled. Unclear to the audience but clear enough to Johnny. "Hello? Carl?" Johnny said into the phone. "It's Johnny Carson. I need you at the studio. Right now." He hung up. The audience was utterly confused. Johnny turned to them. "Carl Perkins," he explained, "wrote Blue Suede Shoes. He played with Elvis. Recorded with Elvis. He lives 20 minutes from here. And he's coming." Lisa Marie's eyes went wide. "Really? Really?" Johnny said. For the next 20 minutes, an eternity in live television, Johnny Carson did something unprecedented. He filled time. Not with jokes. Not with scheduled content. But with stories. He asked Lisa Marie about her father. What he was like at home. What he cooked for breakfast. What movies he liked. What made him laugh. And Lisa Marie, this little girl carrying impossible grief, talked. She told stories about Elvis the father. Not Elvis the king. Just Elvis. The man who made terrible pancakes. Who watched too much television. Who fell asleep during movies. Who sang in the shower loud enough that the neighbors complained. The audience laughed. Not at her. With her. At the humanity of it. At the recognition that even legends are just people. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. And then, 23 minutes after Johnny made that phone call, Carl Perkins walked onto the Tonight Show stage. No introduction. No fanfare. Just an older man in a simple shirt, carrying his own guitar. "Sorry I'm late, Johnny," Carl said with a slight smile. You're right on time, Johnny replied. Carl looked at Lisa Marie. At the guitar in her lap. His face changed. Softened. Is that Daddy's guitar? Lisa Marie said quietly. Carl Perkins, who'd played with Elvis, who'd written songs that changed music history, who'd seen it all, sat down on the floor. Right there on the Tonight Show stage. Didn't take the guest chair. Just sat cross-legged on the floor next to Lisa Marie's chair. May I? He asked, gesturing to the guitar. Lisa Marie handed it to him carefully. Like passing a sacred object. Carl held it for a moment. Turned it over. Ran his fingers across the strings without playing. Just feeling. I remember when he got this, Carl said, his voice thick. Summer of '56. We were in Memphis. He was so proud. Showed it to everyone. Played it till his fingers bled that first week. He looked up at Lisa Marie. Your daddy loved two things more than anything in the world. Music and you. And this guitar represents both. Carl adjusted the tuning slightly. The small adjustments creating soft notes that filled the studio. Then he started playing. Nothing fancy. Just a simple melody. Gentle. The kind of thing you'd play at home. For family. This is a song your daddy used to sing to you, Carl said. Your mama told me about it once. He'd play this after you went to bed. Said it helped him remember what mattered. And Carl Perkins played a lullaby. Not a hit. Not a recording. Just a simple song that Elvis had played for his daughter. On this guitar. In private. Away from the world. Lisa Marie started crying. Not loud. Just tears running down her face. Johnny Carson, behind his desk, wasn't even trying to hide his own tears anymore. Ed McMahon had turned away from the camera. Doc Severinsen had his eyes closed. The entire studio was crying. When Carl finished, he handed the guitar back to Lisa Marie. You don't need to play like your daddy, he said. You don't need to be a musician. You just need to hold on to this. And remember that he loved you. That's all this guitar needs. Your love. Your memories. That's what keeps it alive. But this was the moment no one in the studio, nor anyone at home, ever saw coming. From the back of the studio, someone started clapping. Slow. Steady. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire audience was on their feet. Not applauding a performance. Witnessing a moment. Honoring a father. Honoring a daughter. Honoring the love that survives loss. Johnny walked from behind his desk. Knelt down beside Lisa Marie. Your daddy would be so proud of you, he whispered, but the microphones caught it anyway. Lisa Marie hugged the guitar to her chest. Thank you, Mr. Carson. Johnny looked into the camera one last time that night. Sometimes, he said, his voice breaking, television isn't about entertainment. It's about remembering that legends were people first. And people leave behind more than music. They leave behind love. The show went to commercial, but nobody moved. Lisa Marie stayed in the guest chair, holding the guitar. Carl Perkins stayed on the floor. Johnny stayed kneeling. For 2 full minutes of commercial break, they just sat there together. A host, a musician, and a little girl. United by the absence of a man who'd been larger than life but had loved his daughter in the quietest, most ordinary way. When the cameras came back, Johnny did something he'd never done before. He canceled the rest of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, that's all for tonight. Some moments can't be followed. Some moments need to stand alone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing this with us. And Lisa Marie, thank you for sharing your daddy with us one more time. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The guitar went home with Lisa Marie that night. But something stayed behind. Johnny Carson kept the cue card from that evening in his desk drawer for the rest of his career. On it, written in his own handwriting, Elvis's guitar. Lisa Marie. November 16, '78. Remember, Legends are fathers first. Carl Perkins sent Lisa Marie a letter a week later. In it he wrote, "Your father's guitar doesn't need to be played to matter. It already did its job. It brought joy to millions. But more importantly, it was there when your daddy sang you to sleep. That's its real legacy. You're its real legacy." Years later, when asked about his most memorable show, Johnny never mentioned the A-list celebrities or the viral moments. He mentioned a little girl and her father's guitar. The night The Tonight Show stopped being a show and became a memorial. A reminder that the most powerful television happens when you stop performing and start witnessing. The network received thousands of letters in the weeks that followed. Parents writing about their own losses. Children writing about their own grief. Musicians writing about the instruments they'd inherited from people they'd loved and lost. One letter came from a Vietnam veteran who'd kept his father's harmonica for 30 years and never played it. "I thought I was dishonoring him by not learning," the letter said. "But tonight I understood. Keeping it safe is honoring him." Johnny kept that letter too. Put it in the same drawer as the cue card. A reminder that sometimes the show mattered most when it stopped being a show at all. And somewhere, Elvis's guitar still exists. Still worn. Still loved. Still holding the fingerprints of a king and the tears of his daughter. Not in a museum. In a home. Where it belongs. Where music and memory and love never die. Where a father's last gift to his daughter wasn't fame or fortune or legacy. It was permission to remember him as just Dad. Just the man who sang her to sleep. Just the person who mattered most when the world wasn't watching. That's what Johnny Carson understood that night. That legends are built in public. But love is built in private. And sometimes, the greatest thing television can do is honor the private moments that make legends human.